Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing an interactive card without any special dies. Now this interactive card was for the Papercraft Business August Challenge. So the challenge was to do an interactive card. Now I didn't want to do a shaker card. I've wanted to do a slider card for a while, but I wasn't sure what to do. And I'm just in love with this vase die. So I've used it a few times. I'm in love with this Look for the Rainbows Simon Says stamp, die and stamp and die set. That could be a tongue twister, hey? This is what I'm going to use, and what I want to do is I want to create a bouquet and then lift that bouquet to reveal the vase and the sentiment. So I was really excited about doing this card. I wasn't too sure how it was going to turn out because I've never created a shaker card, so you're watching me go through this for the first time. So I die cut out all of my flowers and all of my leaves, and I kind of placed them trying to see how many of these I'm going to need. And then I'm going to cut out my vase. Now I'm only cutting the bottom part of this vase just because the top part is going to interfere with my slider. So I just take my blade and cut off the excess there. Now I'm going to use vellum for holding my sentiment as well as the background, just to give it that glass feel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color this vellum with a Copic marker as well. And I really like the effect it gave. It almost actually looks like there's water in the vase, just with the lines of the alcohol marker. And what I did here as well is I made a bit of a mistake, as I ended up putting that vellum on the backside of my panel. Like, I still don't notice. Like, I'm just carrying on like nothing's happened. And I actually don't notice until I go to put my sentiment on the vellum, which is already on my panel and adhere to my panel. You'll see here I'm going to put down my double-sided tape and I'm going to adhere that vellum to the wrong side of the panel. Anyways, I do notice later, we'll get to that a little bit later, when I notice I decide to try and salvage it. Doesn't work out, so I do end up starting over and just redoing the panel, because there's really not much to do other than the die cutting and the vellum. So I'm going to finish this up. Again, I still don't notice that it's on the wrong side, and I'm going to put that aside. And I'm going to grab all those die cuts I cut, and I'm going to stamp them. I'm going to use the base here that I made while die cutting them. I'm going to stamp them with the Memento Tuxedo Black, because I am going to be using my Copic markers to color the flowers as well as the leaves. Now I'm doing it this way because it's a lot faster than trying to line up that die on every single flower and every leaf multiple times, when I only need to just throw the dies on the white cardstock, run it through, and then just line up that stamp once. So anyways, I'm not going to show this entire process because there's a lot of stamping here. But we'll just go through quickly kind of how everything fits. And I've got some post-it tape on the back just to try and make sure that those cutouts don't move in my positioner. So we'll line this up, do a quick stamping image, and then I'll just go through all of them the same way. I decide not to do them all at the same time, just because I usually find I don't get the best results when I try to do everything at once. So I'm just going to do one flower. I think I do a couple leaves at a time. And again, this is just so much faster than trying to line up your dies to every single flower and every leaf, especially if you've got a lot of leaves. So here I'm going to pull out my Copics. These yellows are actually new to me. I got my first set of Copics probably about a month ago, a little over a month ago. And what I had done is I had ordered 72-piece Copics, the KO, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the smaller markers. And I ordered a 72-piece set A. Now I ordered them from Japan, excuse me, to save some money. What happened was due to COVID, it took about 3 months to get here, which, fine, it sucked, but I understand that's just the way of the world right now. So I finally got them, but what they had done is they had sent me set B. I did not order set B, I ordered set A. So I emailed them, and after I emailed them, I contemplated, what do I really want to do? Do I want to send my markers back? And under normal circumstances and normal shipping times, I may have sent them back to get the proper set. But because it took 3 months to get here, is it going to take 3 months to get back there and then another 3 months to get back to me? So all in all, we're looking at 9 months for a set of Copic markers. That's almost a year, and that's just not reasonable. So I decided to keep the set. So because the set didn't have a lot of yellows, I went to Michael's and they had a sale, buy one, get one 50% off. And I purchased 6 markers. I think it cost me about $37. So I got yellows, and I think I'll continue doing that because there's a couple of other colors that I think I'm missing as well. And I think it's more of the reds. I think I want a few more reds, and I'm trying to lean over and look at my colors here, and possibly some more grays and possibly some more earth tones. We'll see. We'll see as I go along. I have 72 markers, so I'm not in an all-fired hurry to expand my collection. I was just a little bit upset that I didn't get the right set. Anyway, so we're going to move on here. This is where I notice that I've adhered my vellum to the wrong side, which is fine. I accept that. I'm going to salvage this panel. So I do some rough measurements here on kind of trying to get my lines in the middle of my cardstock. But what I don't do is I don't measure how long I want that slider mechanism, that slider hole, so to speak. So as you could see, I was trying to use my blade to cut, but this is really heavyweight cardstock, so I just pull out my cutter and cut it that way. It's just a lot easier. So I cut it. You could see my flowers aren't going to be traveling very far, which I don't notice yet, which is fine. I probably could have made do with it. It's not a big deal. But what you will see is I decide that I want to heat emboss my vellum with my sentiment, and I want to use white heat embossing powder, which again is fine. Problem is I've already adhered my vellum. I'm making my slider piece for the back, which is super simple to do, and I'm putting a stopper on it. I eventually put a stopper on it, but what I'm doing is I'm putting my foam tape on here as well. Now, by the time I put my sentiment on here and heat it up, my panel gets so warped. And I'm just so not happy with this panel. I'm not happy with the warpage. Could I have salvaged it even still with more foam tape? Maybe. I don't know. But I was just so unhappy with the warpage. I wasn't really happy with putting the vellum on the wrong side. I love the dimension that the die cuts give. That's one of the reasons why I love die cutting. I have a silhouette cameo. I can make almost any design I want in my editing tool because I'm fairly good at it, but it doesn't give me that dimension that die cuts give. So you can see here, I'm prepping my vellum to do some heat embossing. And the heat embossing turns out fine. It's centered fine. It looks good. I do think I put the sentiment a little bit too high. And that's part of the reason why I decided to not use this. But again, you can watch here, and I always test my stamps. I always test just to make sure I know how much pressure to put on that stamp, because not every stamp is the same. Not all stamp material is the same. Some of it's harder, some of it's softer. So I'm going to put on my heat embossing powder. Yeah, looks great. I'm still going to use this panel. I'm still going to use it. I'm still fighting for this panel. Now I've heat embossed it, which I did not show in this video, but you can see me looking at the warpage. I'm not happy, and I'm looking at it, and I'm humming, and I'm hawing. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out. So it's nothing to create another panel. I'll do some better measurements on my slider opening, get a little bit more. So I'm going to throw this aside, and I'm just going to start over. And I am going to go through that and see, look at me still trying to salvage this thing. I'm still, can I make it work? No. So time to start over. So I'm going to throw that out. I'm going to start a new panel. I'm going to throw on some music so you don't hear me talk anymore, and then I'll come back and see you in a few minutes. So you can see I decided not to do any heat embossing. I decided to use my StazOn on the vellum, and I do like it a little bit more than I did the heat embossing. So right now I'm just placing some of my flowers down, just to get an idea of where I want them to be. So kind of moving them around. I've got lots of leaves here that I can just kind of stick in everywhere. And what I actually eventually end up doing, and I probably could have done this to begin with, kind of just to save me this step, is I grab another card panel, full white card panel. And I'm going to end up gluing them all onto that card panel. And then what I'll do is I'll cut off any of that paper that's hanging over. So you can see here, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to turn some music back on, and I will see you on the other side. So I've got all my flowers glued. I've cut off that excess paper hanging out, and using that back panel, and I didn't think of it until I finished gluing it on. Not only does it hold all the flowers, but it definitely helps to reinforce that entire piece as it moves around the card. So what I'm doing here is I'm just doing a little trial and errors. I want to make sure I don't see that back slider. I want to make sure that my flower in the down position fits perfectly, and then in the up position shows my vase as well as my sentiment. But I also want to make sure I don't show the top part of my vase. I want to keep that covered just because it's a bit of a messy cut. So again, I'm just doing a little bit of trial and error. Make sure that you can't see the stopper behind the flowers. Make sure that my travel is good, and I'm just using a very tiny piece of foam tape. I'm not pressing too hard down on it. I'm able to remove it and place my moving slider mechanism multiple times, and once I figure out where I want that placement, I'll get a larger piece of foam tape and adhere that properly. So here I'm taking a new piece of foam tape. It's a little bit longer, horizontally, I mean, not vertically, because I want that same travel room I had. So this is perfect. I'm going to put my slider in there. I'm going to end up cutting off those excess feet, I guess you could call them, on the back stopper there, just so it doesn't interfere with the foam tape I'm going to be adding to the back of this panel. I'm just going to make sure everything's lining up with my card base. Now, I'm not a big fan of using foam tape on, like all foam tape on the back of my card panels, but I don't really have a choice in this matter just because I have to use foam tape for the slider mechanism. I actually like using fun foam on the back of my card panels to add dimension, but in this instance I can't, because fun foam is slightly smaller, slightly shorter, I guess, in height compared to the foam tape. So I want to make sure that the height is consistent through the whole panel, because I've made that mistake before, so I've learned my lesson. But anyways, here it is, guys. I think it looks amazing, and I have to admit it looks a lot better in person. What I also did is I cut off on the pull mechanism, I cut it off and cut out some small dies and then stamped an arrow. What I found is that it didn't go back down in between the panel and the base very well, so I just took a bone folder and just kind of separated that area and those two pieces of paper, so just the base and the panel. And once I did that, it went in beautifully. But you can see here it does go up and down, not a problem here, but like I said, once I put in that bone folder between the base and the panel, it went in a little bit smoother. So here it is, guys. Give it a try. You don't need those special dies, although I think I might get myself some. It would make things a little easier for a slider card. But anyways, thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. I'll see you guys next time.